Hey, everybody. Welcome to our first episode of QC, which stands for Quarantine Conversations. And we are going to talk to unique people who have a unique perspective on this crisis. And so I have invited two very special people with me to introduce our first guest.
Our first guest is Jeff McMillon. Here are 6 things you need to know about him. He was my dad's youth minister and has been a lifelong friend. He's married to an awesome lady named Sydney. He's an LPC, which stands for Lover of Popcorn. One time he helped stuff a dead frozen beaver into my 3rd grade teacher's sleeping bag when she was a teenager. He let us ride his motor scooter. And the best thing he ever did was have 2 daughters, Shelby and Savannah, who, no offense, are a little bit cooler than their dad.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, girls.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, you're good. Welcome, everybody. And Jeff, thanks for being here with us.
That's the best intro. That's the best intro I've ever had in my life.
I assume you haven't had an intro like that. Any response to that intro?
I just want to know if Anna and Heidi are available for hire because I want to just take them everywhere and just do that.
Well, I will say I had them come up with the LPC acronym, or just make something up. Lover of popcorn. Do you like popcorn?
I do. That fits.
Good. Well, at some time, I mean, now's not probably the best time, but the beaver story is really good. We'll have to tell that at some point.
Yes. Lindsay Clem, their teacher, she will relate.
Well, Jeff, I want to start off with this. Since the crisis has hit, I want to know your favorite book and your favorite TV show or movie, and then the restaurant that you miss the most.
Since the crisis began, okay. So best book I've read since it all started is Everybody Always by Bob Goff. He's so positive and kind and loving. And I just feel like, in a hard time, he's great always, but right now I just thought something in me said, you need to go ahead and read this. And really great. Everybody Always, Bob Goff. You said a TV show. Mm-hmm. Brody and Katie Gustafson, who are in a small group with us that Cindy and I are part of in campus ministry at church, they had been telling me that I needed to watch the miniseries Chernobyl, which was on HBO. And so I watched it. It's really good. Don't know if it was the best choice of things to watch during a pandemic, but I really, really liked it. And
now, is that about the nuclear explosion in that town?
Yes, in 1986, kind of what's current day Ukraine was the Soviet Union. Big cover up, lots of illnesses and kind of extended problems, but man, it was riveting. And then restaurant, on a real pivot here from nuclear explosion / cover up to restaurant I most miss. Big Truck Tacos. We thought we could get some takeout there a week or 2 ago, and we were driving downtown to see our younger daughter and her new husband, and it was closed. Sydney's favorite restaurant, no tacos. Miss it really bad. Yeah.
I chose a Mexican restaurant as well. I love Abuelos. Their Abuelos setup is just so good. So I really miss Abuelos.
I know you're the host, but what about book and TV for you?
Well, so I have a good friend that lives in Kansas that Jonathan Reynolds, and 6 months ago, he got me. In fact, take 10 seconds. I got to show you this book. It's the biggest book I've ever read.
How many pages are we talking?
So he told me to read. I don't read long books, but he told me to read this book. It's 1,252 pages, and it's called The Way of Kings. I have been reading this for 6 months, and I finally finished 2 days ago. I felt like it was the greatest accomplishment of the year, definitely.
It's pretty big. It's great.
It's massive. It's so big. So but it's really good. It's all about kings and
Hey,
war.
next up, you should probably read your Bible.
I should read my Bible. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that TV show. Mary and I, we were big Lost fans back in the day, and so we got into Manifest about a month or two ago, and it's a similar thing. It's all mystery. You don't know what's happening, and so we really liked Manifest. And then and I already said restaurant, so that's my 3.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay, well, hey, here's how we're gonna do this for everybody tuning in, and some of you are probably at home. Maybe you're working and want to take a break, or maybe you've got the kids in another bedroom watching a movie. But we're really thankful for everybody tuning in, and what we're wanting to do week to week is find people that have expertise in various disciplines and just have a conversation with them. And we want it to be helpful and practical for just the average person. And so I wanted Jeff really for the first week for a lot of reasons, like my girls, a lot of things my girls said were funny, but it is true. Jeff and I have been friends for a really, really long time, and he has a lot of wisdom to offer. So the way this will work, I have a question or two that I'm going to ask Jeff, but we actually want you all to engage as well. And so if you have a specific question that you'd like to ask Jeff, just type that in the comments section on Facebook Live, and then we'll receive those and we'll be able to feed those to Jeff. But Jeff does have a background as a counselor, and he's done a ton of work with families. And so I wanted to get his perspective in that vein. And so first thing I want to ask you, Jeff, is many people are spending more time with family members than normal, like a lot of time. Yeah. And so that's really good in one sense, but it also creates more opportunity for tension and conflict. We're just not used to spending this much time together. And so how do we manage the hours and the days and make the most of it and not let the inevitable tension and conflict just take us down?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. And you actually gave me quite a bit of heads up on time to think about that and answer it, which is good because honestly, Phil, there's not any simple answer to doing this. I mean, there's literally nobody that's been through this kind of a thing before. And so we're all kind of trying to adapt our previous understandings and older wisdom to make it fit to this current time. And so I would just say, Phil, you had told me in some of our private conversations that you think the girls are the most ideal age that they could possibly be for being stuck at home together all this time, because they're not so young that they need help all the time, and they're not so old that they are kind of over everything. And Sydney and I are new to the full-time empty nesting world. And so we have all these kind of thoughts of like, boy, I wonder what that would have been like had the girls still been at home. I feel like part of what we need to do getting into this is you got to accept the phase of life that you're in. It is what it is. There's not a lot of that can be gained from saying, I wish my kids were 2 or 3 years older or 2 or 3 years younger, or I wish my kids were still at home. It is what it is. And we make the best of it. I guess maybe before I stop talking for a minute, the first thing I'd say is truly just embrace it for what it is, the good and the not so good. You do not need to love being with your children 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the last month to be a good mom or a good dad. It's normal and it's okay to have kind of these times like, oh man, I could really go for a break. But it's also really normal, like maybe 15 minutes later, to think this is the best times I've ever had with my kid in my life. It's probably going to be, and it probably has been already, a lot of up and down.
Mm-hmm. But one thing that you've told me several times over the years, which I've found helpful, is that if you're ever in tension with somebody, sometimes the best thing to do is just to acknowledge it. Just
Yes.
flat out say, this is how I'm feeling. I know this is awkward to say, but I want to say it anyway. Can you talk a little about why is that so important, and why can that actually diffuse tension?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think as children of God, that we are really invited into healthy dialogue, into honest self-expression that respects the other person. It's not just that I'm going to say what I need to say, right? It's not the I'm going to try to keep it completely real with you on one end, or I'm going to never really tell you what's going on, and I'm just going to be manipulative or passive aggressive and just hope that you understand me. What we're invited into, because I feel like this is what the Lord has done for us, is he's been very open with us about how he loves us and how he communicates with us. And so we're in this moment where we can do that. What often happens is we realize in families that even though we love each other more than we love anybody else on the planet, we don't always know how to effectively communicate with each other. There's a whole, I know for me, I've Sydney's sort of laughed with me, maybe at me a few times whenever I kind of want her to get me without me having to say it or articulate it. And in her defense, this is not fair of me. If I have something going on, I really do owe it to her to figure it out in my head. And maybe I can't figure out in my head. Maybe I need to have a dialogue with her, but then it helps me get something honest going with her. And then we can back and forth it until we're both on the same page. You're not a bad family member. You're not a bad spouse. You're not a bad parent just because you're struggling to identify what you think and feel. But I'm saying the conversation and the willingness to be open and the willingness to figure it out as you go is really the good stuff of families. It's saying you're worth me putting in this extra effort to understand you and you to understand me, hopefully in return, that I'm going to do this. And rather than just pretend like we're this perfect family that communicates perfectly all the time, I'm saying, nah, we're really not, but we're trying. And that's the good stuff.
Well, I one thing I also hear you saying is that it's okay to give ourselves permission to realize that it's not going to be like a 2-month vacation. I mean,
I think
it's okay. We're
mhm.
going to be grumpy. We're going to have a little bit of, downtimes, be sad, and that's okay.
Absolutely. I mean, otherwise it's just, this is to me sometimes the risk of how much effort we put into presenting well, that we know in our heart of hearts that we're trying to be polite and kind and good when we're out in the public or when we're posting things online. But we also kind of know that's not how I feel all the time. Well, there's no getting away from that right now. There's so little, there's actually no margin between who you are and who you wish you could present to the world, that it's like, I mean, we're really face to face with our own kind of shortcomings all the time. Like
Well,
I literally
about, like,
go ahead.
when I have certain friends I only see like once every 2 or 3 months, and so if I can only have 1 hour with somebody like 5 times a year, those 5 hours are going to be awesome because we have so much to talk about and we miss each other. But then if you take that same person and you go, on a road trip for 2 weeks, you're going to get tired of them. And so even with the people we love the most, our siblings and our parents and our kids, like, man, it's just, we were not meant to be in close quarters 24/7. So it's okay. It's okay to take breaks.
No, that's a really good illustration. The thought of being on a 2-week vacation where you're like in the back seat of the car. Think about, like, if you're my age and you remember those trips where you're in trouble in the back seat and your dad's kind of reaching around telling you and your brother to behave, and we'll extend that out to literally all day, every day for a lot longer than a 1 or 2 week vacation. Of course you're gonna have moments.
So obviously you can't solve every individual person's unique issue or problem right now, but I do want to give you just a few very specific situations that as a minister, people have shared with me. So here's first one. It's a family where you got a teenager and they're just perpetually having a bad attitude. They're bringing their worst home, or they are at home all the time with this bad
That's the
attitude.
problem.
So what does the
Uh,
parent of a grumpy teenager do?
Oh man, first of all, my heart goes out to you because that's just I know that you want the best for your teen, and certainly the teen loves and respects you, but that is that life stage where they're in between childhood and adulthood, and so the very thing that they're needing, which is time out from underneath their mom and dad's wings, so they can explore what it's like to be a young adult, they're not getting much of that. And so I would guess a lot of times it looks like angrily storming out of the living room into your bedroom, closing the door, and through the door saying, just leave me alone. And then, parents have moments of regret where they go stand at the door and go, just let me in, just let me in. I would say, first of all, if your kid is having one of those, if your teen is having one of those storm off moments, or maybe they just don't want to get out of their bedroom, very many hours in a day, understand that they're trying to figure out urges that they don't even fully understand, which is, I want to be an adult, but I know I'm not ready to be an adult. And so give him as much space as you can. I don't have an hour number in my mind, but you're not failing as a parent of a teenager to let your teen in a pandemic have a few hours in their room by themselves. That being said, obviously you want to monitor how they're spending their time, right? You don't want them in places on the internet or whatever that you don't feel like have good control of, or that you don't have a good feeling about. But so they need space. But I'm saying, in addition to that, and that thing that I was talking about a minute ago with good communication, you're really trying to articulate to them, I'm giving you space now because I know that you need it. Let's talk again at 4 o'clock, or let's talk again at dinner, or sometime between now and dinner, I'd like you to clean your bathroom, right? Give them something tangible that you need them to do, because a lot of times parents are super frustrated with teens because they're not doing chores. And then when you're watching them kind of sit around, it can be like a volcano sort of building up.
That's helpful. And maybe it makes me think of even just strategically thinking through the day. Like, I don't know why it is, but a lot of people that, for kids, it seems to be that hour before bedtime might be a ripe time for a healthy conversation, whereas 8:30 in the morning is not the best time. So maybe there's some strategy that parents can think through about not just what they need to talk about with their kids, but when is the best time of the day.
When is key. And I think, my dad was big on, he didn't let us sleep in, even in the summer. He's like, you need to get up and I want you to do your chores. And I'm going to come home at lunch. I'm going to check and make sure you have it done. Well, I thought that was ridiculous when I was a teenager, but I understand what he's doing now. And that's part of where you come face to face with. If you're a very authoritarian parent, you can be frustrated right now. But if you're a very permissive parent, you can be frustrated right now too. And that's to me why there's a lot of value in finding the good in both of those parenting styles, where you're more authoritative. There's no doubt about who's in charge, but you're a kind and benevolent leader in your home. So you're really walking that line between expectation and permission.
So here's a totally different home scenario, but one that I've heard from some of our people at Memorial Road. What about the people that are single and they really thrive on relationships and they need to be with people, and yet they're at home all the time, and now they don't even have work as that outlet to go to physically, but they're still, from a really healthy perspective, craving that just face-to-face time and the intimacy and just the relationships that they want. What would you say to the person that's single trying to endure this time?
I think whenever I've thought quite a bit about that since you and I visited about this before we did this online. I think that's one of the more challenging situations. And so just know that if that's your story, just know that in advance. I think that you're particularly in a challenging moment right now. If that's you, I would say what I wrote in my notes as I kind of thought about it is I would say be proactive to reach out for interaction if that's you, because if you wait on somebody else, and this is something that I think I'm prone to do, when I feel lonely, or sometimes if I feel like I'm not being included, I'll actually isolate more, waiting for somebody to reach out to me, which then becomes kind of a negative self-fulfilling prophecy of nobody likes me or I'm all by myself. But the reality is they're probably, those other people are thinking about all their stuff too. It takes so much energy for me right now to teach online, more than teaching in person. Phil, your lessons and Scott's worship and the thoughts that have been done through church have been such a blessing to us. And I'm really grateful for what y'all have been doing for us. I know for a fact that the amount of energy that goes into that is so tremendous. So if you're single and you're feeling like I need contact, I need conversation, but then you're feeling wounded that somebody hasn't reached out to you, give extra grace to all the rest of us and realize that we're trying to figure it out too. But if you need it, go get it. You need a conversation, go make it happen. Text somebody, FaceTime somebody without even telling them you're going to FaceTime them. Or maybe you set up an appointment or whatever. But you get very intentional to identify what you need and then pursue it. And I also think too, and I don't want to say anything outside of CDC guidelines, but I feel like sometimes socially distanced, super small groups, like a socially distanced walk, or, kind of somebody comes by and parks in your driveway. I've had a few students do that where they come park out in front of the mailbox and I'll go stand in the driveway and talk to 2 or 3 of them. That may be your story right now. And I think that's fine.
Well, that word proactive is that's really important. And yes, for single people, but really for all of us, some of the best moments I've had in this season have been when, like, there's been a few Fridays and Saturdays where me and the girls, I'll just say, girls, we're getting out today, get your bikes, and we're going to just pick 3 people and we're going to go deliver a card. And if they're out, we'll say hi. And well, man, those have been some of the best days because we're taking the initiative and ends up we get to, bless people and see people. And if we didn't do that, we'd be home all day long every day.
Right. And Phil,
so being proactive is just really important.
And I'm guessing that when you're with the girls, that the bike ride, what I found is when you're doing some activity while you're being together, those activities feel so much more organic and not forced, right? They're because you're riding your bike while you're spending time together. You're not spending time together, you're riding your bike. And those are the real natural moments that we're really missing. So it's that super intentional, hold my phone up, have a FaceTime call, that it feels good, right? Because it's something, but it's not the bike ride. It's not the walk. So if there's any way that you can do organic things like you've been doing with the girls, that's part of why it's really rewarding.
Let me give you another. I actually have 2 more I want to throw out at you, more specific scenarios. And I'm just going to say them both and you can go one to the other. And if you forget one, I'll tell you it again. But some grandparents are spending, they're still doing face-to-face time with their grandkids. And then some are not. They're opting for digital. And I know there are some grandparents are just sad. They miss their grandkids. They want to be with their grandkids, and they feel a pretty big void there. So that would be one, that the grandparent-grandchild dynamic creating a little bit of sadness. And then the final narrowed down scenario I want to ask you about is what are some pitfalls that married couples need to just be aware of that, hey, These are things we need to think through, that we don't want this time to really hurt our marriage.
Yeah. Okay, so the grandkid one. I mean, we're kind of in that in between right now. We're not grandparents yet, but we have quite a few friends that are. I would say to the grandparents the same thing that John DeSteiger and I said to our college students the other day, and that is this: don't have too many regrets. Try to have no regrets about whoever it is that you decided was going to be in your quarantine group a month ago. Because sometimes you're like, oh man, I wish I would just had them in my crew there at the beginning. Well, you have who you have. It is what it is. I would say don't get too eager here to bust out of that. You got a couple weeks left. Some of you, have issues that make you at higher risk to get sick right now. So just go ahead and lean into finishing this couple of weeks strong, and deal with it the way that it is. That it's got to be hard whenever you see some of your friends who have been interacting with their grandkids, and for whatever reason that's not happening for you. It's not forever. It's not forever. So I would just say, hang on, we'll get through it. I truly believe some of the most sweet and beautiful times in my life have been reunions with the girls, like after I'd been on maybe some of our trips to the Village of Hope in Ghana when they were younger. And then after 3-4 weeks, getting to see them again. Oh man, like I don't wish that on anybody, but just know that big hug and that sweet reunion is coming soon.
That's good.
And try not to think too much in comparison terms. Comparison is the stealer of all joy. Like when I think about what other people have, and rather than being grateful for what I do have, my joy just slips like sand through my fingers. So that's what I'd say there. And then the other.
But before you move on to the next one, what you just said about this is not going to be forever, and there is a reunion coming. From a spiritual perspective, I have tried to wrestle with this idea that I don't know if on an average day I long for eternity and the resurrection as much as I would like to. And I think a lot of people would feel that way. And part of the reason is we have a pretty great world. Many of us do. We like our life. We enjoy having fun, and we get to do lots of fun things. But this particular season is really teaching me quite a bit about the value of anticipation simply as an entity in itself. Like I remember years ago talking to a friend. His wife was about to have a baby, and he was just like done. He didn't want to wait anymore, and he was so frustrated. And in that conversation, he realized that I'm never going to have these last 2 weeks to wait for my baby back. And so he really tried to lean in. I got to make the most of the feeling of anticipation. So I think there's something to be said right now right now we're all longing for this world to be back. Well, man, shouldn't for Christians, that's exactly what we should be feeling all the time for the resurrection. And I want to do better at that. As time goes forward.
I love what you're saying, because I keep thinking of this phrase of already but not yet. Like at the beginning, in the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus is saying, your kingdom come, your will be done. He's saying like, make earth like heaven. And so in one sense, the earth already is the kingdom of heaven. In another sense, there's this groaning and this yearning for what's next. And so if we can grow spiritually in this, I guess that would be one of the good things that came out of it, is that we would have a deeper longing for forever while still loving what we have today.
Yeah, that's quite a goal to get there.
It's hard.
Tell us any thoughts you have about marriage is hard already, but what are some pitfalls that people could avoid, or just general thoughts about marriage during this season?
Yeah, I'm so glad Sydney's not home right now to call me out on all of my. Oh, no, we've had a lot of fun together. We've had it's crazy. Like in June, it'll be 30 years that we've been married. but it's there's so much transparency and honesty in the marriage. I think for me, I'm trying to give advice to me right here. I would say don't rest too much on the fact that this amazing woman that shares my life with me knows me inside and out, and so therefore she unconditionally loves me. I would say, Jeff, don't lean on that so heavily that you're not making effort every day to show her that you love her. Like, like for instance, she's at work right now because it's kind of tax season ish, even though I guess officially yesterday, but they've extended it 3 months. So she's got to do a few hours down at the office every week. But I think when she comes home, if I've been home, if I made the bed, if I cleaned the dishes or had the laundry washed, dried, and folded, I don't always do all 3 steps of that. That speaks volumes to her. And I think for me, it's that very tangible acts of love. Love is not an emotion. I mean, it is, but it's much more a verb than it is an emotion. So it's like, I don't just talk about it. I am those things. And that to me is the real struggle of all this is I'm finding the gap between what I believe and how I'm actually living my moments. And while I wish my moments lined up with my beliefs, they're not always there. And so I'm trying to like slide these in and line these up more. And I think, in marriage, what's more revealing about the gap between what you believe and what you are than being married? So I don't know if
that's really good stuff. So I'm going to summarize a little bit here, and then that'll be our conversation for the week.
Okay.
So first of all, Jeff, thanks for spending some time with us. I know you're teaching online classes all the time, and so squeezing this in was actually, I know it was kind of hard to do that. So thank you for spending some time with us. I actually took notes. I'm a note taker. So here's my big 4. I love the phrase, accept the phase of life you're in. I think that's really important. Be proactive. This is not forever. And love is a verb, not an emotion. I think those are my takeaways at least. So thanks for saying all that. I do want everybody who's tuning in. So just a heads up, this is our first one. So we're going to learn as we go along here, but we're probably going to stick in the half-hour range because we know you have things to do. Next week, we're going to have multiple people who are medical professionals that are working on the front lines of with COVID-19 patients. Over the last 2 days, I've talked on the phone with several and just to see if they'd be willing, and several have said they'd love to share. And so we're gonna get to hear from a few people that are actually day in, day out working with COVID-19 patients. And I know that a lot of people are interested in knowing what that's like, and a lot of us want to support the medical community and show them how much we care and love them. So next week, Thursday, 1 o'clock, we'll do the same thing with a few others. So once again, Jeff, thanks so much for spending a few moments with us today.
Thanks for asking me. I had fun with you.
You bet. And for everybody else, we'll see you next week.